This week, we're going to talk about Hybrid Petya, Windows 10 and secure boot woes, NPM worms, Cisco ASA devices are at risk, and some new Rowhammer attacks. Stay tuned. Below the surface, coming up next. Welcome to Below the Surface. This is episode number 60, being recorded on Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, joined by my co-workers. Mr. Chase Snyder is here with us. Chase, welcome.
Hey, Paul. Hey, Vlad.
Mr. Vlad Babkin's here.
Hello.
Vlad, you just kept adding stories to the show, which I thought was great. We got a lot to talk about. I love it.
Yeah, this week was very productive.
Yeah, there was some stuff
or unproductive, depending on what perspective.
Depending on which side you're on, right? Before we dive into things, just a reminder that Below the Surface listeners can learn more about Eclipsium by visiting eclipsium.com/go. There you'll find the ultimate guide to supply chain security, an on-demand webinar I presented called Unraveling Digital Supply Chain Threats and Risk, a paper on the relationship between ransomware and the supply chain, and a customer case study with DigitalOcean. If you're interested in seeing the product in action, you can sign up for a demo. All that at eclipsium.com/go. Also, October 2nd and the 3rd, I will be at GurCon with my other coworker, Jeff. We have a booth there. We're sponsoring the show, and I will have all kinds of hacking little devices there with me, much like I did last year. There will be different hacking devices. In fact, I just did a technical segment on my other show on this little T-LoRa pager device, which I have running Meshtastic, as well as the Bruce, like pen testing firmware distribution for ESP32 devices. So I don't have these to give away because I'm relatively new. This is the first one I got, and I just kind of figured it out. But I've got some other LilyGo gear, T-Embed CC1101s. I've got some card pewters, and I've got some also from LilyGo, the USB one. That has a little display on it. So I'll be hacking with those, giving those away. I also have, for the giveaway, I will have 3 Bus Pirate 5s that'll be giving away as well. So I'm excited because I get to do cool hacking stuff at the conference, and you can come hang out with me, and we can do cool hacking stuff together. So it's better than that. Let's start with Hybrid Petya. What's your guys' take on this? This was discovered by ESET researchers. Found a sample on VirusTotal that exploits CVE 2024. Is it 7344? That's the HowYar signed bootloader that has a vulnerability in it. It exploits that to install a bootkit, and that malware contains similarities to both Petya and not Petya. Vlad, I know you were talking about the Petya, not Petya things, because that was all the rage. That was certainly an incident.
Yeah.
Right. I don't remember all the specifics. I don't know how much you remember about the Petya attacks.
So, not Petya attacks. It was a destruction malware disguised as pretty much stuff asking for cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Right?
It was just.
But
It was
actually
kind of like
destruction
ransomware. It was kind of like ransomware with no intention in collecting the ransomware. It was there just
Yeah,
to
it
cause
was-
destruction.
Yeah, and as far as I remember, NotPetya had a special vector specifically targeting Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
So they specifically infected a company called Medoc, and what they did was infect their update servers, and where that software got from those servers, because it didn't check signatures, it was to basically every single financial computer in Ukraine.
Right, because it was
And
like
because
it's
of
like
how-
tax soft. Is it like tax software or something like financial
Yep.
tax software? Yeah.
Yep. And at the time, the tax software was running as administrator. Like it couldn't run as a non-admin user. So what you get is update with malware that arrives to you and that automatically gets run by a software that runs as administrator, and that's across the entire country.
Right.
So yeah. And as far
But
as I remember,
Petya was ransomware software, and that's why they called it not Petya, because it.
Not-
Yeah. I remember the whole thing
yeah,
now.
it didn't quite ransomware. And yeah, obviously it also had other vectors. As far as I remember, it was spreading over SMB, and it
Hmm.
also had impact outside of Ukraine. But I think the biggest impact was in country.
Right.
So now we have a UEFI copycat of that malware. Copycat, judging by how Asset called it, I think, or whatever is written in articles I see online.
Hmm.
And in this case, my question is it even the same author?
Yeah. Or is it just someone that got a hold of the code and decided to create their own strain?
Yep, yep. And that's
More
the biggest
likely.
question.
Yeah.
Like
And then, but they put
this is
the infection vector of a bootkit in there. So they brought their own vulnerable bootloader, basically,
mm-hmm.
that I
Yeah, that
described
makes sense.
before. The how yar, I think that's how you pronounce it. How that's how I say it. How yar, which was a discovery by ESET, that discovered that vulnerability in that bootloader that was signed by Microsoft. And so they brought their own, and they used that to install a bootkit. It was like a cloak.dat file, and it encrypts the MFT table in the Microsoft NTFS file system, right? So the MFT is like your file allocation table. It's like the mapping of your file system, for lack of a better term. And so if you encrypt that, like your files aren't encrypted, but the map of how to get to your files is encrypted. Which doesn't mean you couldn't recover it. You just wouldn't get file name. I think my coworker or co-host said you wouldn't get file names or anything like that. Um, but I also think they encrypted the files as well as the MFT, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Maybe, might be. So in this question is not even like for me the biggest question is why target UEFI, right? So like it's not even just okay, it's crypto malware. Obviously they're gonna encrypt something, and they're gonna encrypt the most valuable thing at the lowest level possible. That's also quite
Hmm.
obvious. Like let's just encrypt the bootloader of the computer just as a final hello to the user, right? Okay, that makes sense. What is interesting is that normal ransomware now uses UEFI bootloader thingies,
Right.
secure boot bypasses.
You mean in
So
this
that's the
case, the hybrid Petya case, or you're saying
yep.
there are other examples of malware using
There
UEFI?
are other examples of malware using. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying about ransomware already targeting this. So like ransomware is usually not a high hanging fruit attack. Like, okay, you got code execution. What are you gonna do? Let's encrypt a bunch of files and see what happens.
Hmm.
Right? This is one of the lowest hanging fruit attacks you can imagine, which is like unless it's actually destruction malware disguised as ransomware or something like this, it's normally just script kiddies trying to earn some money, right? Or even if not script kiddies, it's usually not a very high skill attackers doing this. But now it's paired up with secure boot bypasses and UEFI attacks, which are normally associated with much higher skill. And the question is, what does it tell us, right? So in my book, it tells us that secure boot bypass attacks and UEFI malware is now much lower skill than you might expect.
Yeah. I agree.
That's the
And this is
biggest
the
message
progression
to
we've
take
seen with
out of it.
multiple techniques, toolkits, and the like. We covered the J Magic backdoor, and we can trace that back to a frack article from 1999, which was new and novel at the time. It was basically similar, like a port knocking or passive backdoor, if you will, right? That looks at packets, and that was kind of in 1999. That was all the rage. But fast forward to today, and we see that in attacker campaigns. So I think that there's a progression of techniques that start out as academic, as pure research, that transition to higher profile or threat actors that are highly targeting organizations, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then others find out about it and they're like, oh, well, I can use that too. Like more stuff gets published, the code gets passed around, and it ends up in your common everyday ransomware. And so here we are today seeing
Yep.
what looks like everyday ransomware that is now bypassing secure boot and installing a bootkit and messing around with bootloaders on the EFI partition.
Would you say that does it make sense to say that the reason, like, less sophisticated attackers wouldn't need to adopt new, formerly sophisticated, now more accessible techniques like this if their other stuff was working effectively. Like,
Right.
is there a case to be made here that
Yep.
the reason that
That's
less sophisticated, script kiddie ransomware gangs would adopt something like this that uses UEFI or can bypass secure boot because other ransomware techniques have been more effectively defended against? Like the old
that
stuff
as
isn't
well.
working as well, so they're looking around for the new
Mm-hmm.
stuff and they're like, "Oh, this is out there and I know how to do it."
Mm-hmm.
That's true. So in this case, like both things are true. So first of all, secure boot stuff is becoming more off the shelf, which is
Yeah.
why even ransomware actors are even interested in it. Like a well-paid actor who can actually develop this from scratch would probably not need money, right? But somebody who is trying to ransom people, getting access to UEFI thingies and can incorporate them in their tools without a lot of technical knowledge, apparently. That's interesting. And also, why do they need to do this? It's because like all of their older stuff stopped working. Well, maybe not entirely, but okay, there's a lot more stuff going on with Windows right now. Like, for example, if you moved like 15, 20 years into the past, Windows doesn't have any antivirus built in. And Windows Firewall is a joke, right? But now, apparently it isn't. Like, if it would be a joke still, we would not see this. We would not see stuff like this incorporated into common ransomware. So apparently, Microsoft is doing a good job as well at making their systems harder to attack. That's
Yeah.
also
Is
part of the
the
message to
like
take out.
EDR in Microsoft Defender type bypasses getting more complex, and therefore why not just sidestep that and try and get in
Yep.
before the operating system? Because that's maybe it's
Yep.
equally as technically challenging now to bypass an EDR once the OS is loaded, but
Mm-hmm.
now you need that a similar level of skill to go, oh, I'm just gonna use UEFI and bootloaders to get in before the OS,
Yep.
and then have a much easier time bypassing EDR.
Yep. So, and apparently both are now equalized because first of all, EDRs are becoming more and more advanced. So level stuff stopped working against them, and now you have
Mm-hmm.
to do more sophisticated techniques. Like obviously, skill attackers can still bypass it, and it's still a joke for them. But for low skill attackers, it's becoming a problem. But at the same time, UEFI bypasses are becoming off the shelf, so they're
Mm-hmm.
less technically advanced. Where those same low skilled attackers can actually grab those and they are reaching a point where they're about the same skill level.
Yeah, because I think we've uncovered a lot more software that has been signed with secure boot roots of trust that attackers can now
Yep.
use to bypass. We've seen ever since Black Lotus, I feel like we've had this, we've discovered some, ESET's discovered some, Binary's discovered some. Like we see a lot more disclosures of like, hey, this piece of software can be used to bypass secure boot. So now we've got this longer menu list of ways in which we can circumvent secure boot.
Yep.
So can we speculate a little bit on the sort of like research pathway here? Because the ESET article, they say they discovered new ransomware samples, but they have not seen it being used in the wild yet. And I'm thinking back
Yeah,
to our
they
last
pulled it from
episode.
They pulled it from Virus Total and analyzed it and was like, "Oh, hey, look at that. There's a bootkit in there
Yeah,
that
the
leverages
question
a secure boot bypass."
yeah, the
So
question is where it appeared from. Like attackers might be testing against virus total,
Mm-hmm.
which is again, if you upload your new shiny thing to virus total before you actually launch it, that indicates your skill.
Yeah,
Like
not
yeah.
not not a,
if
not a
if you would
good
have a
pathway. Mm-hmm.
yeah, or it might have been somebody got ransomed, uploaded it to virus total to understand whatever they were looking at,
Right.
because that's a completely different pathway. So it's hard to tell which one of the two happened, and if just the set is just not seeing it. But I would call that a set is probably pulling attackers trying to upload that thing
So
and
your
check for
guess,
detections.
if you had a guess, if you had to
Yep,
put a bet on it, you would say that it was a low sophistication attacker that
yep,
was testing it before rolling it
yep,
out, which is an
yep.
I
amateur
don't know. It's
move.
also likely that someone was infected and didn't know what it was and uploaded it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but question is where is the news articles? Like where is basically all of the noise this would have produced.
Right.
Like,
Well, I mean, it comes down to like who's disclosing breaches these days if they don't have to,
yeah,
right?
and then yeah, but then why develop this whole ransomware if you are gonna use it on a single target
Mm,
and use it as ransomware?
right.
It seems
Like
likely
if
there's going to be more news. There's going to be more stories about this. Something more is going to come out. This is not going to be the end
yep,
of it. It's going to be like
yep,
someone's going to come out as having been attacked, or there's going to, where this is just the beginning of this story.
But
yep,
there's also
yep.
been a lot of updates to revocation lists and certificates that combat these types of threats that I think the attackers are banking on people haven't updated. Because on the long laundry list of things you need to do in IT security, making sure your certificates and DBXs are up to date with for secure boot is not high on the list. Is That's just my general gut feeling. It's not high on the list.
Hmm.
It kind of gets
Yep,
lumped in with
it probably is
firmware,
not.
right? Well, and also it's kind of a dangerous thing to do, which we'll get to
Yep.
Windows 10, but systems cannot boot. There's an operational risk of systems not booting if you start messing
Yep.
around with secure boot stuff.
Yep, and there is a lot of operational risk for just updating UEFI. Like
Mm-hmm.
specifically my laptop, like it needs UEFI updates from time to time, and when you do, when you reboot, it just sits on a black screen for a few minutes. And if
Isn't that
you're not
frightening?
patient enough, yeah, and if you're not patient and try to touch it, it locks up,
Mm-hmm.
like completely locks up. At one point, I just did it without really thinking about it too hard because I didn't see any messages about UEFI update. And I got stuck with a laptop that I had to repair for like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I have skills to do this, so I managed to get it back.
Right.
But like, if you're a normal customer and you do this, now what?
Yeah. Did you have to break out a spy programmer or no?
No,
Okay.
thankfully no. I
Okay.
don't remember what exactly I did, but it was a lot of googling
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of frustration. And that's just normal UEFI update. What about stuff that can actually block my OS from booting entirely unless, like, you go to safe mode, I think it's in Windows called,
Yeah,
where
in
it
Windows
only
with
loads
SafeMode.
its own drivers,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go over all of the drivers and shut them down one by one. Yeah, for a lot of people that sounds frightening. Like
Mm-hmm.
people barely understand what a driver is. Like in the past, you at least had to install your own drivers from, you have like 20 packages, so at least you know what you installed, right? At least in a good amount of cases. Or
Right.
at least there is some technician who knew, whom you can go back to, like the one who installed US. But now what? You got a laptop with just everything sitting there, and if
Yeah.
one of it gets blacklisted, well, good luck.
Right. But and I think most users use the term driver and don't understand how overloaded that is. That UEFI
Yep.
has its own drivers that we call Dixie drivers, right? Driver execution
Mm-hmm.
environment.
Yep.
That are those earlier stage drivers that enable your hardware. Then there's the operating system drivers, and there's obviously different types at different levels for different components, and they're very separate things. And transitioning to Windows 10, my concern is because now it's looming. Now we're starting to see more articles. Like just this week or last week, I saw a commercial. I was watching a football game, and I saw a Best Buy commercial that was specifically targeting, hey, if you're a small business and you're running Windows 10 and next month it's going end of life and you need help, you should call us at Best Buy. Because guess what? Best Buy wants to sell you new laptops and desktops for your organization, because if they don't
Yep.
support Windows 11, you could be stuck on Windows 10. And so
Bring
they're
in the
trying to
Geek
Yep.
Squad.
I mean, and rightfully so, they're trying to, I don't fault them for that, because it is a scenario where people are going to have to update their hardware in a lot of cases. My
It's
concern is once Windows 10 goes end of life and we're not getting updates from Microsoft, we're not going to see updates to revocation lists and other certificates. And one of the concerns is, let's say you put a new peripheral in your computer. That peripheral has a UEFI Dixie driver on it that's signed not by the certificates that are on your system, but signed by the newer ones, not the older ones, and you have secure boot enabled. Your system's not going to boot. It's not going to match up, potentially.
the real answer to all of this, though, in my opinion, is for the customer to actually create their own certificate locally and just have a package that signs everything that's in the system.
Yep.
and once you have to update, you have to resign. And okay, the question is, how do you store that? Well, there is a password you can actually set up on that file, and the user can be prompted to it at some point to write it down. And then this problem would be entirely gone. The
Right.
problem
But
is
that's
customer now
complicated.
needs to know this password,
Well,
right?
that's complicated too. Like a lot of people pick on
Yep.
secure boot, and I'm like, if you're unhappy with the way the root of trust comes from Microsoft and OEMs,
Yep.
you can do it
Make your
all on
own.
your own. Like don't pick on secure boot, because secure boot totally gives you the flexibility to build your own root of trust. Is it a huge pain in the butt? Yes.
Yes.
Right? That's the problem.
But yeah, but again, for a large organization, that might be an answer. Like
Mm-hmm.
imagine like that you provision in 1,000 laptops, and it is 1,000 of the same laptop. What you can do for those laptops is create a root of trust and sign all of the drivers specifically for those laptops. And now you control the updates. So the not fun part comes when, oh hey, that laptop is trying to update, and it updates from Windows. Now what? You go
And
to
what happens
driver
when you
and
get a
it
new
stops
boot?
booting.
What happens if Microsoft updates the bootloader?
Yep. What happens when Microsoft changes stuff? So
Right.
there are a lot of questions with this, and there is not enough solutions for those. This is why we don't see it happening. So yes and no. Yes, it does give you flexibility to make your own root of trust. No, it's not realistic because of how Microsoft handles updates and a lot of other things, right?
I think a
It
lot of
doesn't
Windows
ask
10
you.
users, they're just going to end up disabling secure boot if you're on Windows 10 to avoid these
Yep,
issues.
yep. And the dumb part is it might be the only option. Like,
Right.
and even dumber part is all of the TPM requirements that I think Microsoft is implementing. I don't think it's customer friendly. Let's say it's
Mm-mm.
let's put it down on the table as it is. It's anti-consumer.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
like,
they're forcing a hardware. I mean, it's very Apple like, right? They're forcing a hardware update.
yeah, but what happens is Windows 12, 13? Like, I assume they will come out eventually. And what then? What anti-consumer practice will Microsoft implement then? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a good trajectory overall for the company. Like, Microsoft is already bleeding customers if you look at numbers, right? I saw articles like this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're bleeding like millions of them. Honestly, I would just stop trusting Microsoft entirely. And if we are completely honest, a lot of the home market is being held by office software, games, and
Yep.
creative products, right? Like Photoshop and whatnot. But point is, gamers now have SteamOS, which is an alternative, and it's based
Mm-hmm.
on Linux. Office products, there is Google, there is cloud stuff, and then there is also LibreOffice, OpenOffice, which are, let's just say, catching up to just about most of the home user needs. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, Microsoft is still in the lead by far, but do you need all of that in your home for just basic text editing?
Yeah, dude. I'm a
Not
Linux
really.
user. I'm a Linux user. I use only Office. Works great.
Yup, and I use Google Docs for most of my document needs, and I
Yep.
99.99% satisfied, right?
Mm-hmm.
And creative software, again, if you need Photoshop, then you're out of luck. But if you need something simpler, GIMP is good enough for a lot of use cases.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's by far not as good. Sure, can it handle like quite a few needs? Yes, it can. And consumers now have a lot of alternatives to pick from.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I
eventually,
switched from Mac, but also the Creative Suite. And when I went all Linux, actually, this podcast, if you listen and watch this podcast, the post production is all done on Linux with Kden Live for video editing, with Audacity
wonderful.
for audio editing, with GIMP for any image manipulation, and there you have it. And that's not going to satisfy all users. Like you said, there is a push. There is a, what
Yeah,
is it called? Windows 10 something. There's a website where they're pushing people towards Linux to get away from Windows, and I think it's, it's going to hurt their
yep,
market share
yep.
because of all this.
Yep, and the biggest game changer in this case is SteamOS, believe it or
Mm,
not. Like another corporate thing, sure, but what it did is solve running games for a lot of, again, younger generation and a lot of entertainment use cases, which is what people use a computer at home for by a lot, by a large
yeah.
margin. Like it's entertainment, movies and whatnot, but again, movies is a solved problem on any operating system for a long,
Mhm.
long time. So I'm not even mentioning it. The games was an unsolved one.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
a lot of
if you're a
customers just don't
gamer,
need it anymore.
if you're a gamer and you're on Windows 10 and you have to enable secure boot, you're in a tough spot coming up soon, right? You either got to get to
Yep.
Windows 11. I guess that market is probably more likely to upgrade hardware, and that could be what they're banking on.
Yep. That market is likely to upgrade hardware, but point is, will this hardware upgrade come with SteamOS? Which it might. It
Right.
entirely
Does
might.
Windows 11 have any big launch titles?
Well,
I
I
mean,
was also thinking like the justification to your significant other, like, hey, sorry, sweetie, I got to build a whole new gaming PC because I'm Windows
Oh
10 and I
no.
can't upgrade. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I got to go. I need the latest graphics card, from Nvidia in order to play my games. Like sneaking that
yeah.
in there, right?
I mean, modern NVIDIA graphics cards, like they are okay. Kettle enthusiasts and NVIDIA graphics cards enthusiasts will have a lot of similar stuff with their electrical wiring in their house very soon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it literally it's like a kilowatt of energy in a good gaming rig right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Their latest and greatest card is like what, 500 watts, 600 watts, I think, some insane number like that. Pair it up with a CPU which can eat like 253, 300 watts easily, and all of the other little components in the system, and you have a kilowatt computer.
Yeah. You like even your
So,
1,000-watt power supply is not enough anymore for a modern gaming rig.
yup,
You need at least like 1,500 or more.
you're
I was
literally
checking that
running an
out.
electric kettle.
Yeah, the draw is insane. Anyway,
Yup.
so
So,
it's a bad situation for Windows 10 and secure. When I thought about the implications for secure boot and updates on Windows 10, it's very concerning because upgrading hardware it's a process, and there's going to be a lot of businesses that are going to be Windows 10 is going to be floating out there for a long time. And as we've seen, attackers take notice of things like this when things go end of life, when there's an opportunity for people to be in organizations to be in a more vulnerable position because they're forced to do an upgrade, and that takes time and money and resources. They're going to lag behind. And attackers are usually right there going, we're going to take advantage of this situation. Let's see. Everyone's going to be who's running Windows 10 is likely either going to be running outdated secure boot or disable secure boot entirely. So, what a great spot to implement some boot kits, test out some new ransomware, implement some boot kits, and that's going to be a field day for attackers potentially.
Yeah, big new attack surface opening up. Plenty of warning. The
Yeah,
end of Windows 10 has been
right.
coming up for so long. It's like anybody who's preparing for this has had ample time to
Mm-hmm.
build out their attack stack against
yup.
uh,
Like I'm expecting people to come up with 0 days about a few months after it goes out of business, maybe even a
Yeah,
few days. Like wait enough for Microsoft not to issue any updates or try not to issue any updates, and then just start delivering 0 days. I wouldn't be
yeah.
too
And
surprised if some attackers have 3 or 4 of them stashed by now,
stashed
and
by
like they
now.
deliver it once every few months to like test
Yeah.
Microsoft Resolve.
And eventually we'll find out about them. But then the question becomes how severe does it have to be for Microsoft to release an out of cycle patch? Historically,
Yep.
things have to be pretty bad for Microsoft to release an out of cycle patch for an end of life operating system.
Yeah. And then there is a good question like if it becomes really bad one time, okay, sure, they released a patch. If it becomes bad 2 times, then what? If it
Mm-hmm.
becomes bad 3 times, now
Right.
what? Is Microsoft gonna support it forever, or are we gonna just force Microsoft to release out of line patches every few months now? So they still have to maintain it, but without any formal maintenance.
The only saving grace is even as a consumer, you can pay Microsoft to get updates on Windows 10. But again, that's a
Sure.
cost.
How many people will subscribe
We
to that,
actually do that.
especially from whole
yeah.
customers?
Can't fathom someone choosing
Sure.
to do that instead of just upgrading to Windows
Mm-hmm.
11. Who's out there
Like,
doing the extended support for Windows 10 as a consumer?
I mean, I can imagine it being
But
some
you can.
organizations, but not consumers, not end users, not people like us. That's for sure.
Right. Well, and similar to the Cisco ASA situation that we have, I think that certainly speaks to attackers looking out on the horizon of what's going to be end of life,
Yeah.
and capitalizing on that. So I want to give props to Gray Noise on this one because they published about it and they collected some great data. So if you dig into the data from Gray Noise, they're like, hey, in August, all of a sudden we saw this huge spike of like 30,000 or 20,000 IP addresses all scanning for Cisco ASA devices. So I dug a little deeper into the ASA scanning in the Gray Noise data. And like, we also have another spike, not just one in August, but we had one in September as well. A very similar spike from very similar IP addresses. They were all from Brazil, um, believe it or not. So there were similarities in the spike. I believe my speculation is there's a group that controls a botnet. One of the things they want to do is continuously scan the internet, collect exposed Cisco ASA devices. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. In the article that I published on our blog, I talked about the available exploits and toolkits for ASA. Plenty of a whole menu of options for various exploits against the platform, including specialized toolkits. Rapid7 researcher released. Vlad, do you remember what the packages are you upload to an ASA? It's like ADSM or something like that. There's like packages,
Not really.
add-on packages you can upload to the ASA devices. Rapid7 researcher created a GitHub account, I believe in Python, to allow you to create malicious packages that you can upload to ASA devices. So that exists. There have been threat actor campaigns. Was Arcane Door was the campaign that was targeting Cisco ASA devices using specific exploits. So it could also be that attackers have exploits for ASA that haven't been publicly disclosed, and are looking for targets. It could be also that, in my article, I talk about Cisco's stance on end of lifing the ASA line. So there's already been products that are going end of sale, end of support, end of life in the ASA line. I think all culminating from what I read in 2026 when the ASA line is like no more. They want everyone moving over to FTD or firepower threat defense, which shares a similar kind of platform to ASA.
Yep. And it
Which,
has a similar vibe to Windows 10 end of lifing.
yes, exactly. So I think attackers are banking on all these things. They're like, wait, we can scan the internet for this stuff. There's in my research, Vlad, double check this, right? If you search Shodan, you can find about 119,000 exposed Cisco ASA
Yeah,
devices, but that's
very
just the web
easily.
interface, right? That's
Yeah.
not
If
that's
if
not
if
SSH. I don't think we
i-
had a good query for
i-
SSH, but
if you're clever, you can find a lot more devices than what Shodan sees. Like
hmm
not every device is like some devices are telling not to scan us in Shodan but still remain exposed. So if you have your private own Shodan, you can probably find quite a bunch more devices. I would
right.
bank on like there being at least 150,000, maybe 200,000 even,
Yeah.
right? And that's
And
just
that's a
web
pretty good
interfaces.
number. I mean, in terms of
Yeah.
numbers we've compared before about targets hanging out on the internet, we talked about BMCs, right? It's a lot more
Yep.
ASA devices hanging out there.
Yep.
So it's a ripe attack landscape.
And from those ASA devices, you can probably jump to BMC devices and a lot of
hmm
other interesting places. Like it's not one stop shop. Like you can just penetrate internal network from there. Like a lot of attacks begin like quite a lot of organizations they maintain an interesting stance in the modern day and age where they have a really strong perimeter which is guarded by different firewalls and whatnot. But once you are on the firewall itself
hmm
and go inside the network, it's just free
Yeah.
for all.
We didn't
Attackers just
patch that
destroy
because it's
everything.
not
That's
on the internet. And look, I get it. You
yeah,
definitely want to defend your perimeter because that's what's on the internet. But you also got to shore up
yeah,
things inside the network too.
yeah. Like your network insights, they should not be squishy anymore. Like we are in the day and age where you can
hmm
allow yourself to have that. So attackers sitting on your firewall should not be suddenly getting all of the possible and impossible accesses to basically everything and everywhere. Like that's just not supposed to be a thing anymore. Like squish on the inside is not a thing. Should not
Well,
be.
much like Windows 10, I mean, people have ASA and it's been around for a while. They've got it deployed. It's out there. It's not easy to rip and replace. It's time, it's money, and it's resources to upgrade, to migrate to either a different platform or a platform that is supported by Cisco. So not necessarily Cisco's fault. They can't support products forever. Um, but the clock is ticking, right? Like attackers are now, we can see attackers paying attention to this. So if you have, the first thing is knowing which ASA devices you have and where they are, and knowing if you have them or not. You might be sitting there going, I don't have any ASA. Did you look? Because what if you do, right? Especially in larger enterprises that have a lot of infrastructure. The second thing is, once you do have them, what do you do about it? Again, you can't easily just rip and replace an SSL VPN or a firewall because people are actively using it. So what do you do? I hate to pitch our product, right? But that's one of the reasons I wrote the article is because we have great coverage for ASA devices in terms of firmware integrity support, vulnerability support for ASA devices. And that's the kind of monitoring you need to do. You need to monitor for vulnerabilities, monitor for threats, monitor for firmware tampering. And that's not always easy. But that's one of the things we help people with. So
I'm wondering whether the whole end of life devices thing, already a huge problem as covered in the article, but is going to get even more extreme due to various supply chain megatrends that are happening right now. Basically, supply chain constraints, or just costs driven by tariffs slash geopolitical mumbo jumbo, whatever. It's like, maybe we'll just leave this old gear in service for another year or two, or focus all our, we're building out our AI stuff. We're buying the AI stuff. We're not going to refresh the network stuff. I don't know. That could be different teams, different budgets. It's complicated, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the end of life network infrastructure attack surface get bigger because of supply chain trends.
And the frustrating thing for me is the ASAs that are out there are probably working just fine. Like there's probably no other reason to upgrade them. Like throughput and capacity wise, I mean, I would take an older ASA. I think my friend Josh on our previous show was looking on eBay for ASA devices and he found one for like $65. I'm like, that would, like a 5000 series ASA would probably be fine for your firewall, right? It would probably push gig not without a problem. But now it's not supported, so you have to replace a perfectly working, piece of gear. And we see this with IoT as well. That, and IoT manufacturers end of life gear, and I'm like, yeah, but that gear would probably run for another 5 or 10 years and be fine.
The answer to all of this is very simple. Okay, you might not need to be exactly super hard on the inside, but the only exposed port on the outside that you have in your firewall should only ever be the VPN port.
Right.
And I'm not speaking about web VPN port. I'm speaking about OpenVPN, WireGuard. I'm speaking about ports that allows you to connect to VPN and nothing else.
Yeah, not the SSL VPN that runs
SSL VPN is usually the same pothole as an open router entirely. Historically, they're not much more safe, right? So if you open up your OpenVPN port with a well-configured OpenVPN or well-configured WireGuard or well-configured IPsec, it's not exactly a port, but kind of the same idea.
Yeah.
Good luck breaking into that, because now your attack surface on the outside is just this one thing which is designed to be handling untrusted connections well.
Right. I mean, not that there aren't vulnerabilities. I think
they are, but
Zixel, whatever, however you say it, had vulnerabilities in their IPsec VPN component. But hopefully that device is supported and you patch it and move on with life.
Yeah, but point is, how many of them are specifically in the VPN part, like the VPN port itself? Maybe like 1 or 2 bugs you can find, but 99.9% of them are in web management interface, not in the VPN port itself.
Right.
And even then, if you don't want to deal with this built-in device stuff, you can buy yourself a Raspberry Pi for home. Or if your organization buy a decent box in your office. Okay, if you're a large organization, how much is it going to cost you? A couple $1,000 to set up a full Linux box which can support a lot of VPN connections?
Mm,
expose that, and be in full control of it.
right.
And like make certificate-based auth in it based on your own certificates, based on your own OpenVPN daemons that you run. Just forward the port into that, and that's it. You are not exposing anything on the firewall itself. Like it will be much easier to actually defend that, and your Cisco ASA box might stand for quite a lot more.
Right.
So yeah, like
It's,
it
I
might
mean,
be
it's that,
cheaper than
it's that
replacing all
trade-off,
of that infrastructure.
right? It's a trade-off. How much maintenance do you want to incur by rolling it yourself? Or, this is why people go to the vendors, because they want to push
Yep.
that work out to the vendors and just pay.
Mhm.
Like, just give me a box that does VPN. But now
Yep.
the attack surface, as we've uncovered in the past few years, is vast on these devices.
Yep. The problem is, I don't think there is any single vendor which actually does what I said. Like, make a web interface which is not exposed to the outside, make a nice VPN config generator, and just give that to customers. No, every single vendor is trying to make some more bells and whistles. Like, because, oh, hey, now you have a thing that logs into some box which is exposed in a port online to get a bunch of certificates for you to connect to corporate Wi-Fi for no reason. You expose a bunch of surface in that box. Now what?
Right.
That's exposed. Like, your Wi-Fi security now costs you an exposed box, which you don't even know what the content of is. You cannot even monitor it that well. So if somebody finds a zero day in that, your organization will have a lot of fun. A lot more fun
Well-
than from somebody stealing your old password on Wi-Fi and just running with it.
But that's the trade-off, is visibility. You go get the box from the vendor, and they don't want you to look inside the box. Can't look inside
Yep.
the box. You can put the box on your network.
Mhm.
You can configure it to do its job, but don't look inside the box, because we don't want you doing that.
What's in the box?
What's in the box, right? Then it's like, what's in the box? But they don't want
Oh
you.
yeah.
They don't want you in the box. They want you to live outside the box. And you're like, yeah, but attackers are inside the box. Why can't I look and see what they're doing? And you can't.
They
Because
can't
you
get there
cannot.
if you deploy it per spec.
Right.
The
That's what they
attacker
say.
can't get to
Attackers
it.
can't get there. But that's obviously not true.
Yeah, attackers can get there and have done the getting there. Getting there part is not even that easy. So, and then like you'll have a lot of fun. And that's the whole point. Like, if you really want a secure solution, you will have to invest some cost. But at this point, my question that I'm raising here is how much pricier it is to actually have a bunch of admins just administrating your own VPN box versus outsourcing it to this box and risking getting your organization systematically exposed.
Yeah. So I did the lazy way out, and I used Tailscale. And I think we've talked about on the show.
Yep.
Can enterprises use Tailscale? How much does it
Oh, yeah.
scale?
100%.
They should, right?
Yeah.
The trade-off is you're shifting the security responsibility off to the provider, in this case Tailscale. How much do you trust Tailscale versus the other vendors versus rolling your own solution, right? And these are this risk equation has stayed the same for 30 years, right? Since I started working in IT and IT security. And it's like, do we get a vendor? Do we host it somewhere else in the cloud, let someone else take care of it? Or do we put in the work ourselves and build our own solution using open source software?
Yep.
Doing the risk analysis math is beyond the capacity or the resources for most organizations. It's so complicated, and there's just a lot of information that you need to do that risk analysis and decide what you're willing to accept versus mitigate versus transfer. Like the appliance companies that won't let you see inside the box. That's obfuscating something that you need to accurately do the risk analysis. And so like supply chain risk management has these intentional blind spots introduced by the supply chain, by the vendors, that make it difficult to impossible to get an accurate view of what risk you're accepting.
And then there is like you cannot really do that anymore because now there's compliance where you must have no CVEs in your Docker images or whatever you deploy to customers. Like Yet companies that, okay, so like imagine just what situation we are in personally. Like we are obviously developing a product, right? We are under some regulations to do this, and one of the regulations that we have, which is again not a large surprise considering it's not just us, is that Docker images that we deploy must not have CVEs in them whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we allow VPN vendors to fly free, and the organizations that develop those Docker images to be CVE free are using products which they cannot even see into and enforce their compliance.
I mean,
Like
maybe that's what
this
people
is
want. Maybe we just need a hardware appliance, and then just tell people don't look in the box.
yup. Like don't look on the box that Eclipse delivers you. That's
Yeah,
great.
you
But
won't find
like for
any
some reason,
vulnerabilities if you can't look inside of it.
yup. And that's the stupid part. Like what I'm challenging here is the view that the
Yeah.
old box actually save you costs, like the gear cost to you. Like you pay the vendor a lot of money to manage them, then they get exposed, exploited, you get ransomed, you get your data stolen, you pay all of the price of that. And the
Mm-hmm.
question is what you just paid in this one-time ransomware attack that happens one every few years is not
Right.
greater, is not less than would have been paying a normal administrator to manage your supply chain, like to
Yeah.
pretty much make your own OpenVPN based solution, which is much less likely to be ransomed.
Right. But I think a lot of reasons why people buy the higher end enterprise gear is I think one is throughput, right? Like if I was when I worked for the university, if I had proposed at that time, going back to almost 20 years, but if I had proposed, oh, I'm going to build this solution on Linux to route traffic or do VPNs, they'd be like, it's going to get crushed under the weight of the throughput we need to push through it. And that's why we go to vendors such as Cisco and
Sure.
others for the throughput. But then also, in a larger environment, we go, well, we don't need a couple of firewalls. We need hundreds or thousands of firewalls. And the enterprise vendors like, sure, we'll sell you all that and we'll give you some management software, right? Fortinet has this. When I studied this for one of the attack scenarios that
Mm-hmm.
Fortinet had, right? You got a bunch of firewalls now. You got so many firewalls, you need management, more software and potentially hardware to manage all of your firewalls and VPNs from one central location. And that's why they go with the large enterprise vendors. But the flip side, as we're pointing out, is you're increasing your attack surface, you're limited on visibility.
Yup. And in this case, like we managing VPNs, like I don't know about firewalls, like obviously firewalls are more complicated.
Mm,
VPNs, if you configure your OpenVPN well, what you really need to do is just issue new certificates and it will work. And then you need your OpenVPN to just update CRLs. Like you
right.
revoke a certificate, there should be some process which will pull the revoked certificate into every single box. That's it. You
Mm-hmm.
just revoked access to somebody and suddenly you have management across the board. Now, again, there are a lot of enterprise management tools like, okay, there is Ansible. So you
Right.
can, with Ansible, you can manage configuration changes.
But the
So,
the third reason why enterprises choose the larger enterprise gear is not even so much support, but it's skill of the IT and IT security workers.
yep,
So if you roll your own solution, let's just say for VPN, right? What
yep,
happens when people leave, people come and go, and the new people are like, I don't know what that is. Whereas if you deploy a Cisco,
yep,
Fortinet, whatever, there are people that have experience with all that gear. So you can get people, you can be
yep,
like, oh, I need another Cisco person, right?
yep,
Cisco has a whole certification program that's part of Cisco's mission, right? Make sure we have certified professionals so companies buy our gear and can always find talent to go work on said gear.
yep. And another huge point about this is that before the entry level skill into making your own system was really high up. There was no
Yeah, yeah,
Ansible, there was no easy to
right.
manage OpenVPN with PKI support. Making your own PKI was a whole headache. Now you can make it within a few hours in the most basic
It's
bare
true.
bone way, right? So the entry bar into using open source tools to manage all of this is much lower,
Mm.
and it's getting lower. So
Um,
it's only
I
going to
want
get better.
I want to transition to. We talked a
Yeah.
little bit about supply chain, right? The
Oh yeah.
NPM attack is
Oh
super
yeah.
interesting. This is all a
And
rage right now.
PM attack ties into what we have been talking about since
Yeah,
forever. So
supply
like
chain.
So just okay. What attacker calls their worm Shai Hulud. Okay, so that's way too epic of a name to just use it consistently. Just call it npm worm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was pretty much find their way into some package. What the worm does when you install
But they
it,
fished a maintainer, right? They social engineered a maintainer to gain
it
access to
doesn't.
that.
Yeah, the point is, whatever they need to get into the first package is less interesting.
Yeah.
What happens next is, once you get that code into some popular enough package, it gets downloaded, it runs, and it looks for npm tokens across the machine. And if it finds some, it worms its way into other packages and keeps going that way. And this way, they wormed like 180 packages or something like this. So the scary part about this is not the part where it pretty much found their way into one popular package. No, it's they found their way into like at least 180 packages which we know of, and sit there. And they can sit there indefinitely. Like we don't know if we got them all. And at some point, the developer wakes
so
up.
the tokens
installs
that they're
package, and
looking for
surprise.
are for the maintainers of other packages, so they can modify the code of another npm package. Now that package is
Yep.
backdoored.
And then they also look for GitHub tokens and for other tokens as well. They have successfully found quite a few of them. And the dumb part about it all is like all of this has a solution. It's called signatures.
Yeah, I know. And
Your
there
software has to be signed, but
was,
okay, supply chains that I know don't quite sign their software. Golang, Python, Node. Tell me just about any single package manager which actually does proper signatures.
yeah,
Like, okay, there is apt, which does signature checks.
right.
Sure. Linux packages are signed. I'm speaking about software supply chain. Node is not signed, Python is not signed, Golang is using GitHub clones, which don't quite require any signatures.
Mm-hmm.
And the absolutely stupid part is that if maintainers get ransomed somehow, they get their tokens exposed, you can just push new code, and there is no way to verify if this code is coming from the user or from the attacker.
Well, that's
And
the
this is
problem. It's
why,
the lack of validation. I can't validate all the packages that are installed on my system
Yep.
from any particular environment.
Yep.
And what most of us do is we watch the screen scroll by as it installs all
Yep.
of those dependencies, right? If you use
Yep.
Go or use npm, or like me, I do some platform IO development, which is an ESP32 development kit, development framework. I
you
should say.
you just look at it go.
Yeah. So the first thing I do, so this is frightening. The first thing I do is I git clone the repository, or if I'm creating my own code, I create my own directory and make it a git repository. Then I have to install platform IO. So I create a Python virtual environment and I pip install platform IO. It installs a whole bunch of Python dependencies to get there. So now I got the Python code. And the next thing I do is I use platform IO commands to install the platform IO dependencies for whatever board or firmware that I'm working with. And it goes out and it pulls on a whole bunch of stuff that are specific to like ESP32 development libraries. You need one for your, you need the IDF from Espressive Systems, you need the Arduino, whatever. If you have a display, you need the libraries for your display. And it goes and it pulls all of that software down. I sent you guys screenshots in our chat, right? Like it installs all this software. Then I can build the firmware. And I'm like, wow, I just pulled down from like 2 different ecosystems a whole bunch of software that there's zero validation of what I'm getting.
Yeah, there's at least a few partial solutions. So Python package manager Poetry and npm built in. It actually when you install packages, they build a log file where they write the hash of the stuff. So it prevents you from like getting a package which you didn't know about. So you can install specific packages from specific log file in your production builds. Sure, that's a partial answer. And while I made signature sound like a ready-made solution for it all, it's not quite so simple to manage keys at this scale. Like,
well, that was the point of was it Sigstore? What do they call that? There is an effort to allow developers to sign their package. Is it Sigstore?
Yup. And the point is, APT somehow did it. So there's and why attackers call this worm Shai Hulud? It's because it's not gonna be gone within a few months at the very least, probably years. And
Mhm.
like while npm might clear this specific worm, nothing stops attacker from doing this attack again and
In a
again and
different
again,
ecosystem. Yeah.
and in a different ecosystem as well, because like all of them work in a similar fashion. If you got the token, you are done. You can publish packages, and there is nothing the defender can do to actually ensure there is no surprises. And if attacker really wants to just annoy as hell out of everybody, they can just keep repeating this attack over and over and over and
Yeah.
over
And I don't think it's
until
interesting.
something happens.
I don't think attackers care so much about poisoning the software that you're developing or creating. They just care about getting
Yup,
access to all of the credentials that you have as a developer and then building on that
yup,
and spreading it and
yup.
compromising more developers and more develop. So it's the developer that's at risk, not. I don't think they care about backdooring my ESP32 firmware. That's because
Yup,
that's not really going to get them very
yup,
far, right? But if
yup.
they
They
steal
don't.
all my
Yeah, but for example, like if, for example, let's think about some high privileged developer in a big company. Imagine
yes,
them runs them in somebody high sitting in Microsoft. Suddenly you get access to Windows source code
yes,
for editing it.
exactly. Right. You're going to steal my SSH keys or whatever and pivot from there. It's a pivot point from the developer.
Yup,
It's a way into the
yup,
developer's ecosystem. Yep.
yup. And like this is why the name, even though it's like incredibly epic sounding and everything, this one time attacker actually did a good job naming it.
What does the term mean, Vlad?
Shai Hulud is like I think worms from Dune series.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
the big
Dune
worm from
reference. It's a
Dune,
Dune
Star Wars,
reference.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
The great worms of Arrakis or something like this, and like
Yes.
they were really tied to the plot in there and everything. So it's
They're
like
running
really
out of
really
Lord of the Rings
massive worm.
references. All the
Right.
Lord
Yeah,
of the Rings
so
references are taken by defense tech companies, and so
Mhm.
the attackers are going Dune.
yeah, so and in this case, like yeah, we should go some unexpected universe. Like, you know, instead of like all of the epic sounding movies, just take some child cartoon and take stuff from there and name products from that. I think it will be so
K-pop Demon
fresh that it will
Hunter.
actually,
We're doing K-pop Demon Hunter viruses now.
yeah, or better yet, defensive software that's titled like, you know, they take some Sailor Moon names and just name your defensive software based on that.
Tuxedo
I mean,
Mask Defense Tech. I like it.
I mean,
That's
it will
crazy.
be so fresh in all of the Palantirs and Shai Hulud and all of the epic sounding names that people are gonna notice it.
Right. We did have some new. What was the Rowhammer attacks? I saw the story. I didn't really dig into
Oh
it,
yeah.
Vlad.
Oh yeah, the fresh Rowhammer attack is again very productive week, or very unproductive week, depending on what end of the stick you're on. So, a bunch of researchers found a Rowhammer attack against the modern DDR5 chip in a desktop system, and managed to demonstrate that.
I thought
So
there was
what they
protections in DDR5 to prevent
they
Rowhammer, right? Is that what they circumvented?
well, they circumvented all of those. And
Mm.
they could Rowhammer the stuff out of your memory within like 103 seconds or something. Not very high value, let's put it this way. And they could achieve bit flips.
Which essentially lets them read memory they're not supposed to read.
Yup, they get access to stuff they're not supposed to get access to, and that's it. That's the fun part. And it's a DDR5 chip that's desktop grade. That's in a massive vendor.
Mm.
So a lot of people are not going to be replacing that for years and years to come. Without secure
Yeah.
boot, you at least know that you're on Windows 10. Good luck finding out if you're on that specific chip vendor for your DDR5 RAM, because again, what you got was like Kingston Fury RAM. What you don't know is what kind of chips they're using in there.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like, okay, let's say Kingston issues a new chips. Now you have a new Kingston Fury which is defended from all of this. How do you differentiate as a customer?
Oh, that's interesting. Can we
Like,
not glean which memory chips are on the system?
potentially, like if you collect a lot of data, we might find out.
Mm.
So, like, I think this will be a part of what Eclipsum should be researching at one point to help answer this question, because this is not an easy question. Let me put it
No.
this way. It's like not at all an easy question.
Well, because I would assume that supply chain with DRAM is similar to a lot of the supply chains we talk about with hardware. That you
Yeah.
might get the, like you said, the Kingston branded. I hate to pick on Kingston.
Yeah.
Any memory
Yeah,
manufacturer is this line, but they could swap out the chips in the back end, much
Yeah.
like a lot of OEMs do.
Yeah, just in case, what I don't remember is if it was Kingston specific. I'm just using it as an example of like a off-the-shelf RAM you can actually find, right? I just know this one specific name easily from my memory. But like it can be any RAM vendor, any RAM line.
Yeah, like I have Corsair Vengeance, and the system may report to me I've got this model and it's whatever, but I don't know
Here you
exactly
go.
which
You named
chips.
you named another one. Do you know what chips Corsair uses?
Yeah,
No, you
exactly.
don't. Most customers don't. Even advanced customers, even geek customers don't know.
And so they could
And
be susceptible to Rowhammer now.
Yep. Yep, and like in older RAM, you have chips exposed, so you can theoretically take it out, take a lens, look at them, read what the chip is. But on the modern RAM, it's under heatsink. So
right.
you cannot even take out the RAM to actually look at the chips. You have to take out the RAM, disassemble the heatsink, then look at the chip, then reapply whatever thermal transfer element was in there, then assemble the heatsink bags, and you can insert it, and then you can be sure what chips you have.
I'm not doing that in my DRAM because I just saw an article.
Yeah.
DRAM prices are skyrocketing now because of supply.
Exactly. Even geek customers will probably not do that.
Yeah, I would not be taking the heat sinks off of my RAM, especially at the cost, the prices they're getting for them now.
Yep. Neither will I. Neither will anybody sensible.
Yeah. Well, and some of the gaming systems, right? The RAM has LED lights on it and stuff. And
yeah, and
good luck.
Better yet, just blindly replacing RAM is not even gonna work for you because now you have let's say that you're crazy enough. You disassembled your heatsink, you assembled it back, you know your chips, you checked with the researcher, and the researcher confirmed you personally that it's vulnerable. Or you got a PIC from him, it's vulnerable. Now what do? You go to the website and you try to buy new RAM. And now what do? Because you have to order RAM, which arrives with a heatsink, and you don't know what's in it.
Right.
And you cannot disassemble it without voiding your warranty and killing your ability to return it. So you can order a new RAM, disassemble it, and find out that it's the same chip.
Wow. That's crazy.
So there is not a lot of answers on how to, even if you find out how to detect that you're vulnerable, how exactly do you fix it is, if it's a hardware bug and not a software bug that can be patched. And again, this is the problem of black boxes. Like we must push supply chain everywhere. All of the questions we discussed today, Cisco ASA, Windows 10, Rowhammer, NPM, everything is about visibility and signing stuff. Like if your computer arrived to you with an HBOM, a list of hardware components in this computer, or HBOM, a list of components specifically in this RAM that's arriving to you. In this specific stick, you have this specific list of hardware components. It will not be much easier for you to, do your security stuff. And then if you solve signatures, hey, sure, maybe signatures on NPM are optional, or you need to know like a bunch of like public key servers. But let's say you're a security conscious company, you can just, list, okay, we're using the default NPM, we're using these three vendors, we accept their key servers, and suddenly we have signature checks, right? So all of those just have no answer right now. We need all of those. Like Eclipsium has been pushing for those since forever, and literally the entirety of today is almost all are about this exactly.
Right. Well, here's to the bill of materials. I guess it's the good way to close out the show. I want to thank Vlad and Chase for appearing on today's Below the Surface. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.